Hello and welcome to Path to Enlightenment class. Unfortunately, Nick is unwell this week, so I'm his understudy. So we can dedicate all of our merits to Nick very quickly, feeling much better and joining us again next week, hopefully. So, as always, we'll begin with the general prayers. So, starting off with the prayer of praise to Shakyamuni Buddha, which we'll do in both Tibetan and English. Champa chundende deshin shepa, drachampa yangtapa tsope sanje, vipadang shapsu tempa, dewa shepa jiten champa, chebudo e kajo jula, lana mepa ladang minam chitampa, Sanje chandende peljawa shakya tupala shasalo churu chapsu chiwo. Teacher, Bhagawan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly pure and complete Buddha, all-knowing, having poise, Sugata, apprehender of the world, navigator of beings to be subdued, incomparable, teacher of gods and humans, to the Buddha, the Bhagawan, the glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, we prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. And then the refuge in bodhicitta prayer. Sangye chodang tsoi chi chog nam la Jiang Zhu Ba Du Dan Ye Jiao Su Chi Dai Ge Jin Soi Ji Pe So Nam Ji Do La Pen Chi Sang Ye Dro Pa Sho. To the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I go for refuge until becoming enlightened. Through the merit of my generosity and so on, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all beings. To the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I go for refuge until becoming enlightened. Through the merit of my generosity and so on, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all beings. The short mandala offering. O Saji Puji Juje Me To Tram Re Rab Leng Jeniere Jen Badi Sangye Jeng Do Mengde O Drogan Nanda Jingla Chupasho. This ground, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, Mount Meru, the four continents, adorned with sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered thus, may all beings enjoy such pure lands. Next, the seven-limbed prayer. I prostrate my three doors with a mind of respect and offer all actually arranged and mentally emanated offerings. I reveal all the downfalls and negativities that I have ever collected and rejoice in the virtues of individuals and superiors. Please remain perfectly abiding until samsara is no longer seen. I request you to turn the vast and profound wheels of Dharma. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. And a prayer of the lineage of gurus, which we'll also do in both Tibetan and English today. Punso gele jive trompe ko daye drove lewa kongve sung malu sheja jishen zikpeto shache tso de la guchatsa dame tamba de ye se chi chuk jelve se pa kanchi ko namne Trame shendo drope namroa me pam jampe yang la salo shendo papa kava javeyum jishin gong pa jelse san lin ludro tome jene sasumna yang sudra pe jabla dak jak Shinta Chambo Nile Lekshupe Samutawa Jachen Chupelam Mano Yangsu Zepe Nedupe Tampe Zezin Mame Zeladu Doju Kunji Lamji Nezope Jishin Zikshin Zebe Dom Zebe Jalve Damjo Malu Zenbai Lo Sandra Pe Pela Shakzalo Rab Sham Sung Rab Kon La Tavemik Kelzang Tapa Tepe Jung Ojo Tseve chepe take zepaye selze jinyan namla guchagso. Body born from a million magnificent, excellent virtues, speech fulfilling the hopes of infinite beings, a mind that sees all objects of knowledge precisely, I bow my head to the chief among the Shakyas. Supreme sons of the incomparable teacher, carrying the load of all the conqueror's deeds, by their emanations appearing in countless realms, I prostrate to Maitreya and Manjushri. The mother of conquerors is difficult to fathom. The precise thought is in commentaries written by Jambudvipa as ornaments, Nagarjuna and Asanga. I prostrate at the feet of those most renowned in the three realms. From these two great chariots come the excellent lineages of the paths of profound view and vast deeds, their essential points gathered thoroughly and without fault. Prostration to the lamp holding this treasury of instruction. Giving explanation to compassion by seeing precisely and completely the essential points of all paths of Sutra and Tantra, holder of the conqueror's entire holy Dharma. Prostration to the glorious Losang Dragpa. I, seeing all the infinite teachings, supreme way of crossing for those entering the journey's liberation, moved by compassion to deeds skilled in method, prostrations to the spiritual masters who make everything clear. And the great treasury of excellence, which we'll do in English only. The kind master is the basis of all qualities, and proper alliance is the root of the path. By seeing this excellence and through much striving, bestow blessings to be devoted with great respect. This gentle support of freedom, obtained this one time, is most difficult to achieve. Knowing its great value gives rise to a mind seizing its essence constantly day and night. Bestow blessings to generate this continuum unceasingly. It is like a bubble in water, this constantly moving body and life. Thus remember the swift collapse of death. Beyond death, like body and shadow, white and black karmic results follow after. By gaining firm certainty in this, the massive faults, subtle and very subtle, are abandoned, and the accomplishment of all virtuous collections completed. Bestow blessings to ever retain conscientiousness. The qualities of samsara are unfit to be trusted. The door to all suffering, do not be content with these enjoyments. By knowing its defects, bestow blessings to develop a great aspiration for the bliss of liberation. By that pure thought, great conscientiousness is drawn forth, and mindfulness and awareness of the individual liberation, the root of the teachings. Bestow blessings to make this the essential practice. Just as I myself have fallen into samsara's ocean, all living beings as mother are also like that. By seeing the responsibility for the liberation of beings, bestow blessings to be trained in supreme bodhicitta. However, by merely generating the mind, if not acquainted with the three aspects of ethics, enlightenment will not be attained. By seeing its excellence, bestow blessings to train with strong effort in the vows of conqueror sons. Pacifying distraction toward perverse objects, by way of proper analysis of the perfect meaning, bestow blessings to swiftly and continuously generate the path related to the union of calm abiding and special insight. Thus becoming a vessel trained in the common paths, enter the Vajrayana, supreme evolution of all vehicles. Bestow blessings to engage the easy path itself, that sacred way of crossing for fortunate beings. The base of practice for the two aspects of attainment is when guarding the pure vows of commitment is found to be genuine and certain. Bestow blessings to protect them even at risk of life. Then, by understanding properly the important points, which are the essence of the two stages of the Tantra classes, bestow blessings to practice according to these holy teachings with continuous effort in the supreme four-session yoga. Like that, may the spiritual friend revealing the gentle path and the friends of proper practice stand firm. Bestow blessings to quickly pacify the masses of outer and inner hindrances. In all rebirths, may I never be parted from perfect gurus and the enjoyment of the glorious Dharma. By utterly completing all qualities, paths and grounds, may I quickly achieve the state of Vajradhara. So I thought for today's meditation we'd do the rainbow body contemplation. So first, establishing the most conducive physical posture with our back straight but comfortable, hands folded in the lap, right hand on the left palm with the thumb tips touching. Arms extended out slightly from the body at the elbows. With our head slightly tilted forward. Mouth, jaw and tongue relaxed. And if possible, with our eyes half open and half closed. Or if that's not comfortable, we can fully close our eyes. Having set the physical posture, we set the mental motivation for our practice. Recognizing that our mind is a continuum. What we've been thinking about, saying and doing today affects the quality of our mind at the moment. And what we do with our actions, words and thoughts for the rest of this day will also affect our mind tomorrow and so forth. So to gain the most benefit of this meditation practice, to shape our mind in the direction that will bring most benefit to ourselves and others, we should aspire for the most positive motivation possible. So not only does this practice rainbow body meditation, supreme relaxation, not only will it bring us some momentary peace and stability of mind, not only will that peace and stability of mind be a habit that brings more peacefulness and enjoyment into our lives generally, rather it can be the start of the most profound and extensive reshaping of our mind. The foundation of gaining such peace, such clarity, such insight, such compassion, that we can bring unbelievable benefit to every other living being without exception, by being a cause for our enlightenment. Or if at the moment that thought's too big, we can just think, may this practice be the cause of as much benefit to myself and others as is possible, as I can imagine. Just that wish is enough as a starting point. And then for a short time, as a preliminary means of settling the mind down, we engage in breathing meditation, allowing our attention to gather inwards, settling on just one object, quietly watching the natural rise and fall of our breath. being alert for any mental wandering. And when we notice it through the power of mindfulness, simply allowing our attention to settle back, resting lightly and naturally on our breath as it rises and falls. And visualize that at our crown chakra is a tiny, intensely, vividly bright and colourful rainbow-coloured drop. Brilliant, vivid point of light at our crown chakra. Light rays emanate out from the drop and transform our crown chakra into rainbow light nature. The rainbow-coloured drop then descends from our crown chakra to our throat chakra, sense it abiding there, brilliant, vivid, emanating rainbow light. Which transforms our throat chakra also into the nature of clear, peaceful rainbow light. The rainbow-coloured drop then descends from our throat chakra to our heart chakra, visualize it abiding there. Beautiful, peaceful, powerful rainbow light. Which transforms our heart chakra also into rainbow light. Then the rainbow-coloured drop descends from our heart chakra to our navel chakra. Sense it abiding there. And transforming our navel chakra into the nature of clear, intense rainbow light. The rainbow-coloured drop then descends from our navel chakra to the chakra at the base of the spine. And abiding there transforms it also into the nature of beautiful rainbow light. So for a moment hold the sense of all of our 5 chakras: crown, throat, heart, navel, and at the base of the spine, transformed into beautiful, peaceful, powerful rainbow light. Light rays then emanate out from each of these 5 chakras, pervading the whole of our body. Transforming our coarse body fully into a body of clear rainbow light. So stabilize on this sense that our entire body is now composed of pure, beautiful, bright, rainbow-coloured light. The rainbow light then emanates out from our body to the building or room we're in, our immediate environment. Transforming it from solid matter into beautiful, peaceful rainbow light. The rainbow light then emanates further out from our immediate surrounds. Transforming our whole property, the area around it, our whole immediate community, the environment and all living beings within it, into the nature of rainbow light. The rainbow light continuing to extend further and further to our region, the continent we are on, the whole of this planet, all its environments and all living beings. Transformed into the nature of clear, peaceful, pure, rainbow-coloured light. The rainbow-coloured light continues to emanate to the farthest limits of space, encompassing all galaxies, universes, realms, every environment, everywhere, every living being within those environments, transformed into pure, clear, rainbow light nature. So stabilize for a short time on this sense. All environments, all beings, in every direction as far as we can conceive. Transformed into the nature of beautiful, vibrant, peaceful rainbow light. Then visualize this rainbow light pervading all of space begins to progressively collect and gather back towards our own rainbow natured body. So all phenomena and beings in the nature of rainbow light collect and gather back into our own rainbow body. So that when it has dissolved, all that remains is our rainbow light natured body, pure, clear, brilliant, vibrant. Our body of rainbow light then begins to progressively dissolve upwards from the feet, through our legs, arms, torso, the light dissolving upwards and gathering to a single brilliant point of rainbow light at our crown. I sense that the whole of our rainbow body is collected and dissolved into this single point of light at our crown. Brilliant and bright, tiny. And that brilliant single point of rainbow light then collects and dissolves into clear emptiness, We can dedicate the merit of this supreme relaxation practice, thinking through this practice of profound relaxation, may I bring more and more peace into my life, more and more good heart into all of my actions of body, speech and mind. May my wisdom continuously increase. So that I'm perfectly able to do what's best for every other living being. Perfectly able to understand their problems, and to be able to help them escape from psychic existence to the attainment of Buddhahood quickly. And then we can open our eyes and release the meditation. So as most people probably know, Geshe Loden composed that meditation based on some special methods that are taught in the Vajrayana, and in his original notes to the meditation, he commented that if we do this meditation regularly, it brings the result of our body becoming very light and energetic. So he recommended it as a really good meditation to do, relaxation meditation to do regularly. So, with Nick's completion last week of chapter 17, we've reached the next major division in the path to enlightenment. So in particular, we're commencing with part 5 of the book. And it's summarised, where are we? Summarised with the outline on page 486, which actually isn't numbered itself, but you can find it immediately after page 485, strangely enough. And this introduces the third of the three great divisions of the path to enlightenment, that is the path of great scope. And in the brief outline of the structure of this final section of the book, Geshe explains that it's presented under three divisions. The first of which is called Entering the Great Path, and that's covered by chapter 18 of the text. The second of the three sections is how we go about developing bodhicitta, which is covered in chapters 19 and 20, and that includes both the explanation of the specific methods we can use to cultivate the mind of enlightenment bodhicitta, such as the 7 cause and effect method, the method of equalizing and exchanging ourselves with others, as well as some lovely commentary on the mind training tradition as well. And also includes in there a detailed line-by-line explanation of the Bodhisattva vows. And then the third division, which is the whole of the remainder of the book, is how to engage in the Bodhisattva deeds, which is covered in chapters 21 to 32. And that includes an explanation of each of the 6 perfections, of the 4 means for ripening minds, and following the presentation of the perfections of concentration and wisdom in a general sense, then goes into a specific explanation of developing the mind of calm abiding, which is an aspect of the perfection of concentration, and special insight, which is the highest application, you could say, of the perfection of wisdom. And actually the first of those divisions, entering the great path, if you look at the outline to the text, so on page 928, where Geshe gives the whole outline, he actually even though the chapter name here is Entering the Great Path, the actual name of that section in the outline of Path to Enlightenment is Bodhicitta, the only entrance to the Mahayana. So that's really what we're talking about here in this first division. And Geshe also briefly mentions that division name on page 490 of the text that we'll come to in a moment. So we're talking about the path of great scope, and everything that we've been covering in Path to Enlightenment for the last 2 years so far has related firstly to some preliminary subjects and then to the explanation of the first two scopes, that is the small scope and the medium scope. So to understand what the path of great scope is about, it's useful just to back up and understand what the small scope and medium scope are doing, and so that we can differentiate the interest and focus of the great scope and also understand how they relate to each other. So if we ask ourselves, firstly, the small scope teachings that we did in this first year of our current review of Path to Enlightenment, what's the problem that it's solving? Why do we practice the small scope teachings? The main objective of the small scope teachings, the result that they will produce if we practice them diligently and achieve the realization of those subjects, is that we can liberate ourselves from rebirth in the three lower realms. That is, we can neutralize the causes that would put us into the most difficult, most challenging circumstances in cyclic existence. So that's really what the small scope is about. So if we think about the subjects that are covered in a small scope and how they work toward that objective of avoiding rebirth in the three lower realms, firstly, before we even get into the small scope, there are two really important preliminary subjects. So firstly, there's the explanation of Guru Yoga. So the practice of Guru Yoga explains to us, if we have a Lama, if we have a spiritual teacher, it explains the way that we can make the most use, extract the most value from that relationship with the spiritual teacher in order to advance our practice. So it shows us how to understand that relationship and how to practice it properly, and avoiding misconceptions about that relationship. If we don't currently have a spiritual teacher, and if we don't currently have a spiritual teacher, there's no hurry. There's a lot to be said for the dictum that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But if we don't currently have a spiritual teacher, then the teachings on Guru Yoga explain us how to go about checking a person who we would be considering as a spiritual teacher. And as we know, the teachings emphasize over and over again the importance of really taking that checking process seriously, so that we have complete confidence in the person who we're relying on to be our spiritual guide, not making the judgment based on the fact that a whole lot of other people have chosen that person as a spiritual teacher, not relying on the fact that that person may be charismatic or articulate, but really, really examining that person's conduct and taking as much time as we need to do that. If we do that and have the basis of strong confidence in the spiritual teacher, then that relationship is an enormously strong foundation for the rest of our practice. The second preliminary subject, before we even actually get into the small scope of the teachings on leisure and fortune, and the importance of the teachings of leisure and fortune, is that they remind us of the opportunity that we currently have to develop from a spiritual perspective. We can think about it in terms, sometimes at certain times in our life, things may be going absolutely wonderful. Everything seems to be falling into place. So maybe there's a job, our dream job, that we've really, really been wanting to get, and we're successful in that. And that feeling of delight of having achieved something that's a source of satisfaction, a source of happiness, pervades our whole experience at the time. Or we become a parent for the first time, and the joy we have at the birth of a child completely lights up our life. If we have the realization of leisure and fortune, then the whole of this human life would be experienced like that for us. Because in the same way that with those other experiences, something has happened to us that's extraordinary, meaningful, valuable, satisfying, we would actually see that our current situation is exactly that from the point of view of our spiritual practice. We would directly understand that what we have now, the ability to practice, is extraordinary. And we'd also recognise, if we do the analysis, that this isn't merely Buddhist spin. If we actually see and consider the unnumbered trillions of living beings just on this planet alone, most of whom have no conceivable possibility of practicing Dharma, no conceivable ability of developing compassion, developing wisdom. If we consider the animal realm, even the animals who are so dear to us, so much part of our lives, no animal has the ability, for example, to develop their mind of compassion. No animal has the ability to develop the mind of love. Those sort of facilities are only available to human beings, and of course not to all human beings at any one time. If we were in Ukraine at the moment, it would be very, very difficult to devote time to developing our spiritual practice. If we are in a situation where we don't have enough to eat, if we have a situation where we have great chronic illness continuously, then it's very hard to develop the energy or to find the time to develop our spiritual practice. So if we actually, through understanding leisure and fortune, actually realise the opportunity we have now, we would have this sense of joy, and with that, the feeling that we need to use it. If we had that, then by focusing on the next subject, where we do actually begin the small scope, we would realise that this opportunity isn't going to be there forever, and that really impels us to seize the essence of that opportunity now. We won't have that opportunity because it's a product, it depends on causes. When the karmic causes that have produced our current life of leisure and fortune are exhausted, it will end. And as we know, that is certain. Death is certain because no other living being has ever managed to avoid death, irrespective of how much wealth they have, irrespective of how much worldly power they have, irrespective of how intelligent they are. We can't avoid death because at the moment we're heading in one direction only. So if we hop on a train at Craigieburn and head towards the city, we're never going to get further away from the city. With each station, we get closer and closer to the city. In terms of the direction of our life, it only heads in one direction, towards our death. We never, ever get further away from our death. With each day, it's like we're passing a station on the train line towards our eventual death. Also, we have much less time than we might actually think, because during our day there is so much time that we need to spend sleeping, there's so much time we need to spend on working, there's so much time we need to spend on other type of routine activities, and that's time that we can't devote easily to the concentrated practice of Dharma. Although, as we'll see, if we're skillful, we can make many of those daily activities meaningful and part of our practice. But we don't actually, on the best case scenario, we don't have much of this life of leisure and fortune, this extraordinary opportunity that so few living beings left. And of course, that's the best case scenario. We have no way of knowing how long it's going to be with us, because the time of death is uncertain. By nature, it is a hidden phenomenon. It doesn't matter how smart we are, it doesn't matter how much conventional information we could gather right now. We have no way of knowing when our death is going to occur. The time of death is also uncertain because for our life to continue, it depends on the continuation of so many causes and conditions, so many things that support our bodily processes. It only needs one of those things to go wrong and our life is over, just like that. And we have no way of knowing when that might happen. Also, our bodies are quite small and fragile. So compared to a mountain, for example, mountains can endure for hundreds of millions of years because they're huge, solid structure. A human body, the body of a living being, by contrast, is quite fragile. It perishes quite quickly. But, so we definitely know we're going to be out of here. This life of leisure and fortune that we have is going to end. We have no way of knowing when. We do know that when it does end, that nothing that we have at the moment around us is going to be of any help. It doesn't matter how much money we have in the bank. It doesn't matter how many friends we have. It doesn't matter how many relatives and family we have who want us to stay. None of those factors can make a difference to us at the time of death. And we have no way of knowing what will happen next, what our next rebirth will be like. But from a Buddhist point of view, and again, we can draw inferences ourselves from looking around us, for example, looking at the lives of animals. From a Buddhist point of view, there's no reason whatsoever that we should again be reborn in a privileged human rebirth where we can just practice Dharma at our leisure, bearing in mind that for most living beings, that's an extraordinarily exceptional state. It's quite possible, and if we contemplate some of the rebirth states that we could currently be in, so if we contemplate some of the ways that some animals live, we contemplate the situation that some human beings live, and that's even without getting into the Buddhist accounts of lower realms such as the hell realms or the hungry spirit realms, then that makes the fact this life and leisure and fortune will be over, that makes it a much stronger impetus to seize it now. We don't want to experience the result of a lower realm. Through ordinary methods, there's not much we can do about that. There's a lot of things we can figure out how goals to achieve in our life. It's not so easy through conventional methods to know how to avoid a result in our next life that we wouldn't want. The way that we do that we solve that problem, is to rely on a method that will produce that result by refuge in the Dharma, refuge in the cessation of suffering, and in the Buddha, the teacher of the refuge, and the Sangha, the community that supports our refuge. And by relying on Buddha, Dharma and Sangha with the objective or the motivation of avoiding a lower rebirth, through this then we have the refuge of the small scope. And if we practice that consistently, then we actually have the realization of the small scope. And what we do from then is put into effect the teachings on karma. So we're very, very careful about not creating the karmic causes that would produce a lower rebirth, and of creating the karmic causes for a higher rebirth, and also of engaging in practices to purify our existing karma. If we have that realization, that is extraordinary. So I heard one really respected Western Buddhist teacher comment that finally, after years and years of practice, he thinks he kind of gets what it would be like to have this realization of the small scope. Not that he has it, but we should, even though this is called the small scope, we shouldn't diminish this in any way or regard it as some sort of minor attainment or realization. So that's the small scope. That's what it aims to do. The medium scope, what's the problem that it's aimed at solving? So if we had solved the problem of being reborn in a lower realm, we might think, well, we've got ourselves out of the worst immediate danger. And that's true, but from a Buddhist point of view, if we do that and contemplate further, we will see that although we can minimize the causes of the worst types of suffering of the lower realms, we still experience the general sufferings of psychic existence. So the medium scope teachings through the subject of the Four Noble Truths alert us to the nature of psychic existence, to the type of experience that we will continue to have if we have a body and mind that are conditioned by delusion and karma. So even if we could avoid the lower realm through the practice of the small scope, still in the human rebirth, we will have the various types of suffering that any human being whose aggregates are bound by delusion and karma is bound to experience, such as the 8 types of suffering, the 6 types of suffering, the 3 types of suffering, such as old age, sickness, death, being separated from things that are important and valuable to us, having to endure things that we don't find enjoyable, dissatisfaction, loneliness, and so forth. All of these, while we are in psychic existence, we are, even if we have the realization of the small scope, we are not going to avoid this type of experience. The Second Noble Truth explains that the causes of this type of experience lie within us, that they are produced immediately by our own delusions, and that our delusions in turn are produced by our mind of self-cherishing, and that underlying our mind of self-cherishing at the most fundamental level is the self-grasping ignorance that grasps at the inherent existence of self and phenomena. That's actually the reason for all of our suffering. And by understanding that that's the reason, then in principle, if we can reverse those causes, then we can change the result. That is, we can achieve true cessation, the cessation of the various types of suffering, by reversing the true causes, by removing the fundamental cause of self-grasping ignorance. And we do that, we get from the state of experienced true sufferings to the state of true cessation through true paths. And as Nick explained last week in particular, it's explained in chapter 17 that these can be understood in terms of the 3 higher trainings. So Geshe actually says that these are the path of cessation, that is higher training in ethics, higher training in concentration, or higher training in wisdom. Or at least you could say that this is one way of understanding or structuring the path of cessation. So that's what the medium scope solves. It solves the problem of psychic existence, the problem of suffering. What is it then what's the problem that the great scope teachings are designed to solve? They're designed to solve the fact that psychic existence is a shared experience. It's something that we have in common with every other living being that is in psychic existence. Psychic existence is not just about us. We can imagine how would we feel if we were able to actually achieve the realization of freedom from all suffering, nirvana, liberation from all suffering, but the people who in this life, for example, are so dear to us, so close to us, are still trapped in the patterns of psychic existence, still undergo sickness, disappointment, dissatisfaction, old age, death, separation, and so forth. How would we feel about being able to exist in a state of peace and bliss ourselves while other living beings close to us, dear to us, who've been so kind to us, are still experiencing the problems of psychic existence? And it was this type of thought that prompted the Buddha, after he had stayed in meditative equipoise under the Bodhi tree for several days, to rise from that and to begin teaching the Dharma, because he recognised that only by teaching the Dharma would he be able to bring the benefit of this realisation of complete enlightenment that he himself had generated in order to benefit others. And also, as we go further, we can see, well, it's not just about people who are dear and close to us in our life who are still stuck in psychic existence, even if we've liberated ourselves, because the more that our wisdom develops, we can see that that really isn't a valid or sound basis for distinguishing people. If we only care about the suffering of people who are close to us and dear to us, well, then that's something that's really about us. We're still seeing this through this distorting lens of what's important to me. These people have been kind to me, these people are dear to me, so therefore I care about their suffering. The more we develop our wisdom, we can see that that's completely unsustainable, because the fact that a particular living being happens to have a relationship with oneself, that's no sort of basis for valuing their suffering or their happiness over that of any other living being. And because also we know through our own experience, our own mind, that every living being is fundamentally the same. Every living being has the same wish for happiness and to avoid suffering, irrespective of whether they're close to us or not. So from a great scope point of view, it's not enough. It's just not enough to simply liberate ourselves from psychic existence. The great scope practices are, therefore, if we're able to engage in them, can bring immeasurably greater benefit, because they not only remove our own problem of psychic existence, but they work on the much more extraordinary, huge problem of psychic existence that every other living being experiences. The word great in great scope, there's a number of different ways of thinking about that. So most obviously it's great because its scope is every other living being without exception. So it aims to liberate every other living being without exception, irrespective of their relationship to us. And it's great because it also aims to eliminate every one of those living beings' problems. But there's a more detailed explanation of that later in Path to Enlightenment from about page 640, where we talk about the 7 greatnesses of the Mahayana. So what the word great is referring to in all its aspects. So in thinking about this, in comparing the great scopes, the great scope, the small scope and the medium scope, though, it's really important not to get into binary thinking about it, or to feel that these types of practice are mutually exclusive. It isn't correct to think, well, the great scope is clearly the best, so why not just aim for the best? Why do I need to bother with small scope or medium scope explanations or practices at all? Also, we need to be aware of the thought that, well, I really love the great scope teachings. I love the teachings on compassion. I love the teachings on love. I love the teachings on the 6 perfections, generosity, patience, so forth. Whereas the teachings of the small scope and medium scope may not be as immediately comfortable. Those are misconceptions, because actually the subjects within the small and medium scope, as Geshe explains, are actually common to the great scope as well. We cannot practice the Mahayana, we cannot practice the great scope without also incorporating the practices and subjects that are taught within the small and medium scope. So Geshe goes into this on page 490 of Path to Enlightenment. The way that we approach this subject, everything depends on motivation. So, for example, we could practice impermanence with any of these three types of motivation: small scope motivation, medium scope motivation, or if we're aiming for the great scope, with a great scope motivation. So if we have the small scope motivation in practicing impermanence, we're mainly focusing on, if I do not take this opportunity that I have with my life now, if I don't seize that opportunity right now, then a karma may ripen, and that could lead me to a lower rebirth state, which I absolutely do not want. If we're practicing impermanence with a medium scope motivation, we're thinking about it in the context of psychic existence generally. Impermanence is a problem, or more like our confusion about impermanence is a problem, because it leads to the truth of suffering, because so much of our suffering is related to attachment to objects that are impermanent, that we impose this false experience of permanence on. So if we're practicing from a medium scope point of view, we're interested in practicing impermanence because it's one of the aspects of true sufferings. If we are practicing with a great scope motivation, then we're alert to the fact that all living beings suffer from being confused about impermanence, from treating objects that are in fact impermanent, changing, fluid, as permanent, as grasping onto things that can't possibly endure. That through impermanence, their good conditions constantly change through karma into difficult conditions. And so therefore, this is a problem that all living beings have. And so therefore, it's my job to help all living beings deal with that problem. So the same subject is approached from these three different motivations. So Geshe summarises this on page 490, where he says he's talking about the practice, the subjects we've already talked about that are set out in the earlier parts of Path to Enlightenment. Whether such practices are part of the lesser vehicle leading to liberation or the great vehicle leading to enlightenment depends on the motivation with which the practice is engaged. Concentrating on impermanence while motivated by renunciation of psychic existence and the aspiration for liberation is a practice of the lesser vehicle. Concentrating on the same subject, motivated by the aspiration to attain enlightenment, to free all living beings from psychic existence, is a practice of the greater vehicle. Also, Geshe talks here about the fact that one of the reasons that we can be attracted to the Mahayana is because it is said to have the most profound methods, the most powerful methods, the most subtle methods of any of the Buddha's teachings. For example, the teachings of Vajrayana. And so we may instantly think, well, if these are the most powerful, most subtle teachings, well, again, why wouldn't I be interested in those? But Geshe makes the point that even if we devote ourselves wholeheartedly to the deepest and most subtle and sophisticated practices of Vajrayana, they can never be a cause for enlightenment unless we have the Mahayana aspiration for enlightenment. And we can only genuinely develop that if we have the foundation in the practices of the small and medium scope. Only that will allow us to genuinely, heartfelt generate the mind, that the urgency, I need to attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all living beings, because I have a genuine understanding, a perception of the position that all living beings are in. I understand psychic existence. I understand that while a living being has the experience of delusion and karma, then they are trapped, and I need to do something about it because I can, because I have the teachings, I have the instruction, I have everything that I need. And Geshe says very neatly that it's this aspiration for enlightenment, this bodhicitta, that's the main practice of Mahayana Buddhism. So Mahayana Buddhism includes the various levels of Vajrayana, includes the six perfections. The main issue, the main practice is the mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta. And Geshe also goes so far to say that bodhicitta is the essential point of the Buddha's teachings, the main thing, the main reason why the Buddha taught, the most important thing that the Buddha ever taught. And this fantastic section of the Path to Enlightenment goes into such detail about the various aspects of bodhicitta, and the purpose of that is so that we can thoroughly familiarise our mind with it. And based on that, based on really understanding what it is and then why it's achievable, and then showing the actual methods that we can achieve it, that we can realise this within our own continuum, that we can bring about this extraordinary benefit, make our own life supremely meaningful. So that's considered in this chapter under these 6 divisions that are listed on the page of 490, starting with the definition of bodhicitta, and that looks like a great place for Nick to start off next week. Hopefully he's better and will be able to do that. And we'll finish off with the dedication prayers. This will do the final Lamrim prayer in Tibetan and English. Deni ringdu bele sonyene ratayampa ganshe sapare Lome mare kidong drowanam namdren joe wampoda gyuchi Dema sempe tsera kuntoyam jampe chanchi tsewe jezune Tempe rimpa kunsang nam jicho Yene rupe janam nye jisho Rangi jishin tope lanjine Chudra tsewe drawe takechi Drowe ichi mumpa seljene Jowe tempa tunrun jinjuchik Tempa rinchen chogi machabam Chapchang nyampa jupe chodene Inje champo yera chopaye Pande tere sawaje pasho Seche jawe mejun trin lele Ledru jancho lanje rimpe chang Taro nanchi yela pelteshin Jawe te pareng do chang jo chik Lamzan trupe ton chen droje chin Kelchen selje medang me mengum Sera kunto jawe ngapaye Namda lamzang jawe fa jo chik Gang se te pa chola chu 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 Zul shin dru la tumpa de ye tse Tu de nan chi ta tu dro je ching Tra shi ja tsu chu kon jab chu chi. By the 2 collections, vast as space, amassed with effort for a long time, may I become a chief of conquerors, a guide for all beings whose mind's eye is blinded by ignorance. Also when all lives will not yet come to that, may Manjushri favour me with his compassion, finding a supreme path complete with all stages of the teachings, may I please the conquerors by practicing well. By my precise understanding of the essential point of the path, with skillful means drawn along by strong compassion, and by dispelling the mental darkness of beings, may I uphold the conqueror's teaching for a long time. Where the supreme precious teaching has not spread, also where it has spread but become degenerate, with a mind deeply moved by great compassion, may I make clear this treasure of benefit and bliss. The stages of the path, excellently established by the marvellous deeds of the conquerors and their sons, give glory to the minds of those aspiring for liberation. May the conqueror's deeds be long preserved. May all humans and non-humans remove the obstructions and establish conditions favourable to cultivating the excellent path, never be parted for all of their lifetimes from the purest of paths which the Buddhas have praised. When someone makes effort to practice properly the 10 points of conduct of the Supreme Vehicle, may he always be assisted by the mighty protectors, and may oceans of good fortune spread out, reaching all. And then the general dedication prayers. Gewanji Chebokun Sonam Yeshe Sog Zog Jen Sonam Yeshe Le Jongwe Damba Kunye Toba Sho. By this virtue may all beings complete the collections of wisdom and merit and attain the two holy bodies arisen from wisdom and merit. Jiangju Sam Chogren Boche Ma Che Panam Che Ju Che Che Pa Nyamba Me Pa Ye Gong Ne Gong Du Pel Ba Shou. May the precious superior mind of enlightenment be generated in those who have not yet generated it, and not decrease in those who have developed it, but increase continuously. Thanks everybody. Thank you especially Manikam. Get well soon, Nick. Get well soon, all living beings who are unwell or suffering in any way. Thank you.